Welcome. Today, we are going to do the impossible. We are going to step out of time and march alongside the Grande Armée, Napoleon's great army, right through the beating heart of 21st century Paris. Look around you. Amidst the frantic pulse of 2026, where iPhones are raised to record the unbelievable and digital screens bathe the streets in neon, the ground begins to shudder with a different rhythm. It is the rhythmic strike of 50,000 hobnailed boots hitting the asphalt. This isn't a film set. This is the resurrection of a war machine that once held all of Europe in its grip. At the vanguard of this titan of steel, atop the legendary white stallion Marengo, rides Napoleon Bonaparte. He carries no scepter. He wears no crown. Instead, he sits in stoic silence, draped in his iconic gray redingote and that trademark black bicorn hat. Why this simplicity? Because Napoleon knew his power didn't lie in gold. It lived in the unbreakable bond he shared with the men marching behind him. Behind him ride the marshals, their uniforms shimmering with gold embroidery. They are the living proof of Napoleon's greatest strength, meritocracy. In the Grande Armée, it didn't matter if you were born a peasant or a prince. If you were brave, if you were brilliant, you carried a marshal's baton in your knapsack. It was this belief that turned French farmers into invincible warriors, men ready to tear down the ancient thrones of Europe with nothing but blood and steel. Right behind Napoleon, shadows begin to fall, tall, imposing, and breathtakingly majestic. This is the Imperial Guard, the men known as the Immortals. Watch the old guard. Their towering bearskin hats seem to eclipse the sun as they march past the glass facade of an Apple store. These were no ordinary soldiers. To stand in these ranks, you needed 10 years of blood-stained service and 3 major campaigns. They were called les grognards, the grumblers. They were the only men on earth with the right to complain to the emperor's face, and the last ones to lay down their lives to protect him. At the head of this column are the sabers. Look at them. The signature long beards, the heavy white leather aprons, and the gleaming axes resting on their shoulders. They were the pathfinders, the ones who shattered every obstacle so the great army could march. Seeing them stride past modern traffic lights is a haunting sight, a clash between the technology of light and the raw, primitive power of steel and human will. And then, behind them, the drums. Listen to that pulse. It isn't just music, it's the nervous system of an empire. In the 19th century, the drum was the only voice that could be heard over the roar of cannons. Amidst the blinding smoke of Austerlitz, when visibility was zero, that rhythmic thunder was the only thing keeping 10,000 souls in formation, holding their lines and their courage together. The ultimate weapon of the Imperial Guard was not their muskets, it was their presence. They were a masterclass in psychological warfare. To the enemy, The sight of those towering bearskin hats emerging through the battlefield's smoke was more than a tactic. It was an omen. It was the signal that the end had arrived. Yet Napoleon was famously protective of them. He treated the Guard as his strategic reserve, his final, ultimate move. He rarely sent them into the fray, holding them back like a gambler holding an ace. But this was their only true weakness: scarcity. They were a finite resource, a legend that could not be replaced. When the immortals finally broke and fell upon the mud of Waterloo in 1815, they didn't just fall alone. As their ranks crumbled, the heartbeat of the empire stopped. When the Guard died, when the dream of Napoleon died with them. Now, turn your gaze to the heart of the machine, the men who etched history across the plains of Europe, the line infantry. Dressed in their iconic blue habits, white trousers, and black gaiters, they march with the cold, rhythmic precision of a ticking clock. In their hands, they carry the Charleville 1777 musket, tipped with a long, cruel bayonet. Look at them now. Tens of thousands of blades shimmering like a forest of steel amidst the glass towers of modern Paris. Napoleon famously said, "Victory belongs to those with the swiftest feet." And he was right. The secret of the French infantry wasn't just their fire, it was their speed. Marching up to 30 miles a day, they were ghosts, surrounding the enemy before the opposing generals had even finished their breakfast. As the column pours into the Place de la Concorde, they shift seamlessly into the infantry square. It is a masterpiece of military architecture, 4 walls of bristling bayonets, turning a unit of men into an impenetrable fortress against enemy cavalry. They were masters of the line to maximize fire, and the column to shatter the enemy's heart. But even these titans had a fatal flaw. Their muskets were temperamental, inaccurate, and rendered useless by the damp. It is one of history's greatest ironies that the rain on the eve of Waterloo would soak the very gunpowder meant to save an empire, turning the tide against the emperor for the final time. The ground begins to shudder with a new, violent intensity. Do you hear that? The rhythmic clashing of steel against steel. Emerging from the mist are the last knights of Europe, the cuirassiers, draped in shimmering steel breastplates and helmets flowing with black horsehair. They sweep across the Pont Alexandre III like a tidal wave of living metal. Their armor isn't just for protection, it is a mirror. It catches the glint of the morning sun and reflects the glass of modern Paris, creating a psychological weight that crushes the spirit of any who stand in their path. But where the cuirassiers are iron, the hussars are fire. The most reckless souls in the army, they ride in flamboyant dolmans embroidered in gold, their fur-trimmed police jackets draped over one shoulder. They are the eyes and ears of Napoleon, the elite scouts who hunt the enemy to the very ends of the earth. And look there, amidst the towering glass monoliths of La Défense, the Lancers. Their long wooden shafts are tipped with red and white pennants that dance in the wind. Those lances are instruments of death, designed to reach deep into infantry lines where no sword could ever touch. This was the most lethal striking force the world had ever seen. Their strength was speed, their weapon was momentum, but their power had a single, fragile heartbeat: the horse. Once the supply of horses was severed, amidst the frozen nightmare of the 1812 retreat from Russia, the cavalry's strength vanished into the snow. Without the horse, Napoleon lost his shadow and his ability to strike the final, decisive blow. Finally, lower your heads in respect for the ones Napoleon called his beautiful daughters, the Grand Artillery. Napoleon was, at his heart, an artillery officer. He took a support force and transformed it into the ultimate arbiter of the battlefield. Watch now, as the bronze Gribeauval 12-pounders are pulled by massive teams of horses through the streets of Paris. Their heavy, iron-rimmed wheels rumble over the asphalt, passing silent electric cars and modern traffic markings. A stark, metallic reminder of the fire that once pulverized the strongest fortresses of the old world. Moving alongside the guns are the unsung heroes of the empire. The cantinière, carrying flasks of brandy to steady the soldiers' nerves, and the medical corps of Dr. Larry. Look closely at his flying ambulances, the swift, horse-drawn carriages that would become the blueprint for every emergency EMS system you see in the world today. The Emperor's genius lay in the Grand Battery, the ability to mass these guns into a single, terrifying wall of fire that could shatter any line. But for all their power, these daughters were heavy. They were slaves to the earth. If the rain turned the ground to a swamp of mud, these masterpieces of bronze became nothing more than useless, immobile weight. A lesson learned in blood at the very end. In the end, the Grande Armée was more than just a legion of soldiers. It was a testament to the human will, a masterclass in discipline, and a beacon of innovation. Their greatest strength was their perfect synergy, the seamless dance of infantry, cavalry, and cannon. Yet they carried a heavy burden, a total reliance on the genius of a single man. As they fade now into the Parisian twilight, they leave behind more than just the dust of the road. They leave an immortal spirit, a memory of an era when men believed they could reach out and grasp eternal glory. Thank you for walking this path of history with me. The great army has retired to its rest, but their echoes will ring forever, through the streets of Paris and in the soul of humanity.